Did you know that poor listening skills can hinder your English fluency? And it's a common issue that many learners face, even if they've been studying for years?
That's really interesting, and it's something that I've noticed in my own language learning journey, where I've struggled to understand certain phrases or expressions.
Exactly, and it's not just about understanding the words, but also being able to tune into the conversation and pick up on the nuances of the language, which can be really challenging.
So, what can listeners expect to learn from our conversation today, and how can they improve their listening skills?
Well, we'll be covering 3 key phrases that will help you catch up with native speakers, including how to keep up with fast-paced conversations and listen in on different accents.
That sounds great, and I think most learners get the third phrase completely wrong, which is why it's so important to understand the context and usage.
Let's start with the phrase tune in, which means to start listening to something, like a podcast or a radio show, and it's really important to be able to tune into the conversation.
That's right, and a common mistake is to use tune in to mean to watch something, but it's actually specifically related to listening, so you would say tune in to the podcast, not tune in the TV.
Here's the weird part, though even native speakers sometimes use tune in incorrectly, so it's not just a learner issue.
Moving on to catch up, which means to learn or hear about something that you didn't know before, like catching up on the news or catching up with a friend.
Exactly, and it's really important to be able to catch up on conversations, especially if you've missed out on something important, like a meeting or a discussion.
A common mistake is to use catch up to mean to meet someone, but it's actually about getting up to date with information, so you would say I need to catch up on my emails, not I'm going to catch up with my friend at the meeting.
Now, let's talk about pick up, which means to learn or acquire something quickly, like picking up a new language or picking up a skill.
That's right, and here's the weird part: pick up can also mean to lift something up physically, but in the context of learning, it means to acquire knowledge or a skill quickly.
For example, if you're trying to learn a new language, you might say, I'm trying to pick up some basic phrases, or I'm picking up the grammar rules quickly.
Another phrase is miss out, which means to lose an opportunity or not experience something, like missing out on a sale or missing out on a concert.
Exactly, and it's really important to be able to keep up with events and conversations so you don't miss out on important information or opportunities.
A common mistake is to use miss out to mean to avoid something, but it's actually about losing an opportunity, so you would say I don't want to miss out on the sale, not I'm going to miss out the traffic.
Now, let's talk about keep up, which means to continue doing something at the same level or pace, like keeping up with a conversation or keeping up with a project.
That's right, and here's the weird part: keep up can also mean to stay informed or up to date with something, like keeping up with the news or keeping up with a friend's life.
For example, if you're working on a project, you might say, I'm trying to keep up with the deadline, or I'm keeping up with the latest developments in the field.
Finally, let's talk about listen in, which means to secretly listen to a conversation or a discussion, like listening in on a meeting or listening in on a phone call.
Exactly, and it's really important to be able to listen in on conversations and discussions, especially if you're trying to learn a new language or understand a different culture.
A common mistake is to use listen in to mean to participate in a conversation, but it's actually about secretly listening, so you would say I'm going to listen in on the meeting, not I'm going to listen in the conversation.
Let me summarize what we've learned today in a mini story. Imagine you're trying to learn a new language, and you want to tune into a podcast to catch up on the latest news and pick up some new phrases, but you don't want to miss out on the conversation, so you try to keep up with the speaker and listen in on the discussion.
That's a great example, and today's challenge is to use one of these phrases in the comments below. Can you tell us about a time when you had to catch up on a conversation or tune in to a podcast?
If you want to practice your listening skills and improve your English fluency, be sure to subscribe to our channel for daily English practice and conversations.
And don't forget to tune in tomorrow, when we'll be discussing the topic of making mistakes and how to learn from them. It's going to be a really interesting conversation, so be sure to catch up with us then.